Well, thank you, Michael. I'm sorry for being behind and putting pressure on the first speaker, but Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will go wrong. So, like I said, my wife Jane and I we've been married for 45 years, and this has been a big part of ours. We started out with horses also, and we ended up with cattle now, and after here go through this presentation, and you'll see all through this there'll be education opportunities from different entities, and here's Amazing Grazing, which is at NC State University and North Carolina A&T, and it's a forage-based educational program. Which one?
Do I have to swap it over to his computer? Or should it still work?
I'm sorry again, folks.
Use the computer arrows. Use these.
I will. I'll do that. I've got it. I've got it. Of course, that's Beaver Creek Farm is our name of our farm, and we established in 1975 in Mount Airy, North Carolina, Surrey County, and it's owned by Jane and I. We have one daughter and 2 grandchildren, and a son-in-law, and it'll be handed over. Thank you. Handed over to them later, and in fact, they're watching the farm today back. And here again is another entity, and just notice it all through here. This number 6, the pointer's number 6 is the cow, the black cow right in front up next to the fence. And she's seen many changes over the years. We retired her at 15 years old, and she's seen things like continuous and overgrazing, 12-month calving season, and you know that you never take the bull out, and you don't know when calves are coming. They just we let these animals, and they're not the brightest, the sharpest stick in the woods, and they tell you when they're going to calve. Not that they even thought of it. Access to streams. We didn't think about that. We were kind of static for, I don't know, till 1978. This will come along in a minute. That we'd graze while the forage was growing and feed hay all winter and try to make hay off of this land. And it was always something, weather or something to make hay bad. As like I said, graze and till and then feed hay. In 1998, this Beaver Creek flooded, which led to a restoration. And I'd like to sit on the rock and just take this picture downstream. And this restoration left riparian buffer, which started, and it led to that, and it's 4,000 feet of restoration, which 3,000 feet of it was on ours. And it was funded by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. And it's one of those programs when they destroy a stream, when building a bridge or a road, they have to restore it somewhere else. So this is something that they may do. And the NRCS, the local NRCS, was in charge of the easement. This led to rotational grazing. I had no idea how much better it was with the NRCS helping us with this. We fenced out the streams, which added to the riparian buffer for native pollinators or any kind of wildlife. Extended the grazing season, much less hay. I don't know why everyone doesn't do this, rotational grazing. It only makes sense, but maybe this is I heard one grazer say one time we're the top 5%. And the rest, and we need to teach the rest, the 95%, that things can happen. But continuous grazing is something, like smoking. I used to be a smoker. And if you don't want to quit smoking, you can't. So if you don't want to quit continuous grazing. And then it makes the cows easy to move. That didn't turn out so well. Easy to move. And they go through here, and there's some native grass up there, and it's in dormant condition, which we use sometimes, well, a lot of times, and there'll be fescue mixed in and other cool forages that'll be mixed in with that. and the NRCS, of course, soil and water, and equip. You got just our farm is stretched out pretty long. There's lots of edge habitat for everything, and in the edge you have wildflowers or blackberries, which is a wildflower. It's not indigenous, but Gene makes a very good zonker, blackberry zonker, and it is very good. 215 acres, 120 acres pasture, and 95 acres dedicated to wildlife. That's all wildlife. It doesn't matter if it's predator or not. Early successional habitat, that's a pollinator habitat, and quail, rabbit, all kinds of small animals. Forest, as I heard somebody mention whippoorwill the other day, and it takes forest for that. Native plants and pollinators. We have thousands. A previous speaker spoke of those, thousands and thousands of pollinators. And in fact, I don't know where I read this, but canola growers in Canada somehow decided to only plant 70% of their cropland in canola and the other 30% in pollinator habitat. And from that, they increased the production. They were making more production on the 70% than they were on the 100% before that with the pollinators. We have over 2 miles of streams on this farm, and there's all these riparian buffers, and they're everyone excluded except for one 16-foot section, which is a creek crossing. That's for emergencies in case the power goes off. And we have this evil grass in North Carolina, and maybe lots of you have it. And I bet you know what I'm going to say. Lots of ergovalin infected tall fescue. Does everyone know what that is? But the great thing about this grass, it's this time of year and later on through the spring, it stays green, it stays high quality. If you set it up right, you have the good and graze it. And then clover helps you with this toxin, this alkaloid toxin. And then also, if you have other grasses to graze, ours don't really, except in the wintertime, fall and winter, that's the only time they stay on toxic fescue very long. There's natives like big blue stem, Indian grass. Here's my granddaughter, Ava, several years ago, and our rat terrier who's still around, she's 15, eastern gamma grass. And recently to our addition is this stand of Virginia wild rye. And we're doing an experiment with this. And also the help with this fescue is annual warm season and cool season annuals. And we have and you see, in these warm seasons, we'll have things like sunflowers and the brassicas and beans, and the native pollinators just like it very much. And then we have a weed patch, which is one farm, and there's a lot of native plants in this. There's a beggar tick, which is a native lagoon for us, and it has a lovely purple bloom. Well, maybe it's lavender. But these cows are going to be eating there. You see one reaching up, eating oh gosh, help me. Sumac, eating sumac, and they'll be eating this clover, where it's all that, and those are perennials. And the cows go, and here's this weed patch again. It's in the same pasture. But it was one thing it did, we we didn't even use it from green up on through to August. And it had all this forage to use. And I'd heard about the previous presenter said something about milkweed, common milkweed. Our cows eat it, and they have plenty. Also hemp dongbane, just lots and lots of black nightshade. I don't know, that maybe they need something else. I don't know what it is, but I saw a friend, I don't know if anybody knows wing stem. He showed me a picture last night, and his cow's eating yellow wing stem or yellow crownbeard. And that was unusual. Ours won't do it. Wildlife is in the soil, plants, and air. But well, I guess I can't go back to that. Anyway, that's a video, and it was going to show swallows and chimney swifts, and there was hundreds and hundreds of chimney swifts that were flying over the cows while they were in that. And here's a Conservation Innovation Grant, which is actually instrumental in us getting to here with a focus group on economic analysis. And here's another one we're involved in. It's the NC State, and it's improving soil health with livestock. NC State and the University of Georgia was in on that. And we have on the poster over there, you can see where we have friends, and they come to visit. We try to show them what we're doing with winter stockpile fescue. And then this is a plot by Dr. Alan Franzlubers, and he's seeing if the more biological activity you have in the soil, the less that the nitrogen is effective. So this is an experiment by him. I don't know if you can see the orange flags in there. And we've already used around it, and just a little polywire keeps them from all that grass, and he'll harvest this. We have teamed with Museum of Natural Sciences in North Carolina. It's in Raleigh. And with that, North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. And they put cameras on our place and move them. They've done it 2 years in a row, and they get pictures like this. And like, I wonder what these bucks are talking about. And now they're fussing about something. I know what it is now. We have more turkeys where there's a camera in a different place, and a deer and a pair of twins, and then lives in the same land with this guy. You know, it's he's evil, a bloodthirsty predator. We coexist with these animals. They're here to stay, I guess you know. You know, they have been persecuted for 500 years by Europeans, and not only have they survived, they have thrived. And I know a gray wolf could control them, but we can't do it. And we're not going to have a gray wolf, as long as just make sure you know about the... We practice being predator friendly. That's wildlife. Of course, you know the bald-faced hornet. I've seen them working cows, catching flies on their backs as they walk by. Sometimes it sounds like a bunch of angry bees, but it's just ones being happy hunting. And these guys, spiders. Ooh, arachnids, you know, there's predator and many others. One thing we like to do is keep the place fuzzy. You know, there's somewhere you can hide in the wintertime or in the spring. You keep it fuzzy. Some people say, I've had people come visit and they say, why do you leave it like this? Well, that's one thing so animals can hide. You have a better chance of surviving. Any of the cows in there grazing? Habitat for rodents. You know, who likes rodents? Coyotes do. Some of my friends don't like to say rats and rabbits because they like rabbits so good. But that's another rodent. This is a picture Gene took a couple of years ago, and an early successional habitat over here that serves as a buffer. Little animals live in this habitat, which keeps a buffer from our livestock, our calves, from, I believe they'd rather catch a rabbit than mess with a 1,200-pound cow. And then here we're working with the North Carolina Forest Service and Wildlife Commission, Wildlife Resources Commission, and it was awful what happened to California this year and other states with the wildfires. But we use wildfire. Here's the Forest Service, and they're planning for what's coming next. And we use fire as a tool, and it keeps these early successional habitats, helps maintain early successional habitats. And sometimes we borrow these habitats from the wildlife, and it's a dry time when we let the cows graze in there. And they'll eat things like Virginia blue stem, which is broom sage. I guess everybody knows it's native grass, especially in the east, and they won't eat it, but this 1414's got a mouthful. And then when we do feed hay, we've changed the practice with that, unrolling most of the time, and then a little while later, that's how it looked, with nothing planted. And then Savannah, oak Savannah, we're working on this. We had it mulched, and we're using hay is to add nutrients. And it's just a little while later, it's like this. This is the next summer. And there's the administrators here today for this on Facebook. And I urge all of you to join. Grazers talk from all over the world, all over. I've talked to people in Africa, New Zealand, just everywhere. And she's sitting right back there, Kirsten Robertson. And then we have friends come and we try to show what we do here. And 1305 standing there, and this is Dr. Matt Poore from NC State. And he must be handsome because she won't take her eyes off of it, but I think it may be because he's a human. I'm not sure she'd call him that. And when you see a human, usually they get something good happens, like something else to eat. And Johnny Rogers behind him. Uh-oh, there's two back row guys and the cows saying, when are we going to get something else to eat? And it's, I don't think they're listening, but they might be. And they're always patient, and they have plenty and plenty to eat. These calves in that, and they just go through, and this is a result. Sometimes, you know, we're searing it, and it's two T-bones, and they caught fire in about 6 seconds. Always thinking of pollinators, always. These carpenter bees, they're sitting on, and I don't have many pictures. Questions?